You step 1 foot closer to that garage and I swear to God I'll have you arrested for breaking and entering. The woman's voice cut through the afternoon air like a knife. Behind her, 2 men in brand new safety vests stood frozen, one still gripping a bolt cutter against my padlock. She jabbed her finger at my chest. "This is official HOA business, Mr. Caldwell, and you're obstructing community safety." Hi, I'm Marcus Caldwell, and I'll be sharing this story today. What you just heard was the exact moment I realized my quiet life in Pinewood Heights, Georgia, was about to become a war zone, and the enemy wore a power suit and called herself the HOA president. Let me back up to where this actually started. Late September, 2024. One of those perfect autumn afternoons when the Georgia humidity finally breaks and you can breathe without feeling like you're inhaling soup. I'd left my property for maybe 40 minutes, just a quick run to the hardware store in Marietta for some Cat 6 cable, mounting brackets, and a decent cup of coffee. My place sits on 12 acres at the edge of Pinewood Heights. The house is a renovated Craftsman I'd spent 3 years restoring, but the real pride and joy is my detached workshop. Custom built, fully insulated, running on a hybrid solar system I designed myself after retiring from network security consulting. That workshop wasn't just a hobby space, it was my livelihood, the physical proof of 15 years building digital fortresses for corporations that couldn't afford to get hacked. When I turned onto my gravel driveway that afternoon, expecting silence, what I got instead was the sound of metal scraping metal. The unmistakable rhythm of someone forcing a lock they had no right to touch. 3 figures clustered around my workshop door. First was a tall guy with a bright yellow hard hat, so new it still had the price sticker working a bolt cutter through my padlock like he was cracking a safe. Second wore a neon orange vest over a polo shirt, clutching a clipboard like it gave him authority. Third stood back with his phone out, recording everything like this was some kind of documentary. I pulled my truck to a stop and just sat there for a second, letting reality sink in. Then I stepped out. "Afternoon, gentlemen," I called out, keeping my voice level. "You boys lost, or just stupid?" All 3 jumped like I'd fired a gun. Hardhat nearly dropped his bolt cutters. Clipboard vest straightened up so fast something cracked in his spine. Phone guy spun around, camera shaking. We stood there staring at each other, me on one side, 3 trespassers on the other. Then, Clipboard vest cleared his throat. "Mr. Caldwell, this is a routine HOA safety inspection. We received multiple reports of hazardous materials stored in this structure, and under Article 12, Section 4 of the Pinewood Heights Covenant." I raised one hand. "Stop before you hurt yourself. First, show me your warrant. Second, show me your credentials. Third, explain which part of private property is confusing you." Hardhat stepped forward, puffing his chest. "We don't need a warrant. We're the HOA. You're trespassing," I corrected. "And you've got about 10 seconds before this becomes a police matter." That's when phone guy, bless his nervous soul, cracked. "Karen said if we didn't get inside before you got back, she'd kick us off the committee. She said you're hiding chemicals. Maybe even explosives." The other 2 shot him looks that could have killed. But the damage was done. Karen Ashford, the HOA president. The woman who'd spent the last 6 months making my life miserable with made-up complaints and passive-aggressive emails. This wasn't a safety inspection. This was a break-in. "All right," I said, pulling out my phone. "Here's what happens now. You 3 sit down on that driveway. You stay put, and you wait while I call the sheriff to sort this out." "You can't detain us," Clipboard vest protested weakly. "I'm not detaining you. I'm suggesting you don't add fleeing the scene to your problems." That's when Hardhat made the worst decision of his day. He squared his shoulders, raised those bolt cutters, and took a step toward me. "We're finishing this inspection," he growled. "You don't tell the HOA." I didn't let him finish. 20 years of Krav Maga doesn't leave you. I sidestepped his lunge, caught his wrist, twisted until the bolt cutters hit gravel, and had him face down on the ground before his brain caught up. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Clipboard vest made a sound like a dying balloon. Phone guy kept filming, but backed up until he hit my truck. "Stay down," I told Hardhat, who was too busy catching his breath to argue. I walked to my truck, grabbed the roll of zip ties from my emergency kit, contractor grade, the kind that don't break, and secured his wrists behind his back. Not tight enough to hurt, just tight enough to prevent more stupidity. Then I dialed Sheriff Mitchell. "Tom, it's Marcus. Got 3 individuals on my property who just tried to break into my workshop. One raised a weapon when I confronted them. A pause on the other end. You hurt anyone?" Just his pride. "They secured? Zip-tied and sitting pretty." On my way. Don't do anything else. I hung up and sat down on my porch step, watching my 3 visitors contemplate their life choices. Phone guy was still recording, hands shaking so bad the footage probably looked like earthquake coverage. For the record, I said loud enough for his camera to catch. I used minimal defensive force. Everything's on my security cameras. 4 angles plus drone footage. And before you think about editing that video, know that I've got the originals backed up 6 different ways. Phone guy's face went white. She said this was legal. Karen told us you were running some kind of illegal operation. She said the community was in danger. Karen lied, I said simply, and now you're all going to answer for it. Sheriff Tom Mitchell rolled up 18 minutes later, lights off, but expression already tired. Tom was old school fair, thorough, and completely done with HOA drama. He stepped out, looked at my 3 zip-tied guests, and sighed the sigh of a man who's seen this movie too many times. Marcus, he said with a nod. Then to them, gentlemen, I walked him through it, the break-in attempt, the bolt cutters, hard hat's aggressive move. Tom reviewed my security footage on his tablet, winced, and handed it back. That's assault with a deadly weapon, he said, pointing at the screen. Clear as day. He cut the zip ties, helped Hard Hat to his feet, and read all 3 of them their rights. Clipboard Vest started crying. Phone guy tried to explain himself in a panic spiral. Hard Hat just glared at me like I'd betrayed him. As Tom's deputies loaded them into cruisers, he turned to me. You know what comes next, right? Karen. Karen, he confirmed. Send me all your footage. And Marcus, watch your back. Women like her don't lose gracefully. He wasn't wrong. 72 hours later, the lawsuit papers arrived. Pine Hills Homeowners Association versus Marcus Caldwell. The charges were creative. I'll give them that. Unlawful detention. Excessive force. Destruction of HOA property. Apparently, those bolt cutters were community assets. And my personal favorite, obstruction of official community governance. I read it on my porch, coffee going cold, grim smile spreading across my face. Karen had taken her people getting arrested and somehow made me the villain. The story she'd built was almost impressive. I'd attacked innocent volunteers performing their lawful duties, terrorized them, endangered the community by hiding hazardous materials, and violently resisting inspection. Complete fiction. But well-crafted fiction. I called my attorney, Patricia Moreno, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd helped me before when Karen tried fining me for solar panels she didn't like. Please tell me this is about something fun, she answered. Define fun. Anything that's not Karen Ashford. Then I've got bad news. She groaned. Send me everything. And I mean everything. While Patricia built our defense, Karen launched Phase 2, a neighborhood-wide smear campaign disguised as safety awareness. Within 24 hours, every mailbox in Pinewood Heights got a glossy newsletter with my workshop on the cover, photographed from the road, zoomed in, made to look ominous under the headline, Hidden Dangers. What's really happening on Ridgewood Lane? The text was masterfully vague. Concerns have been raised. Residents report unusual activity, potential hazardous materials, never a direct accusation, just innuendo thick enough to drown in. My name appeared once, buried in context, about property owner refused voluntary inspection. By the end of the week, I could feel the shift. People who used to wave now looked away. The book club lady suddenly needed to reschedule indefinitely. The guy down the road stopped returning my texts. Karen was poisoning the well. But she made one mistake. She didn't know I'd been documenting everything for 6 months. See, I didn't just have security cameras. I had a networked surveillance system, thermal imaging, motion tracking, automated logging, redundant cloud backup, overkill for residential property, but old habits from my security days die hard. And that system had captured everything Karen had done. Every late-night drive-by where she photographed my property. Every time she sent someone to casually walk past my fence. The 2 times she'd actually trespassed to get better angles. All time-stamped and archived. Patricia nearly cheered when I sent her the files. Marcus, this isn't HOA enforcement. This is stalking. So we countersue? We're going to dismantle her whole operation. The preliminary hearing was a massacre. Judge Elizabeth Warren, a no-nonsense woman with zero patience for frivolous lawsuits, read through the HOA's complaint like she was examining spoiled meat. "Let me understand this," she said to Karen's attorney. "Your clients are suing Mr. Caldwell for defending his property against 3 individuals who were actively breaking in?" Silence. "Show me the warrant. Show me the signed authorization. Show me anything that gave your clients the right to cut through a private citizen's lock." More silence. Karen made her fatal mistake. She stood up before her attorney could stop her. "Your Honor, we had multiple reports about dangerous chemicals, loud noises, suspicious equipment. Mr. Caldwell has been operating some kind of tech facility without permits." "Objection," Patricia said calmly. "Mrs. Ashford is not a witness and her speculation is not evidence." Sustained. "Mrs. Ashford, sit down." Karen's face flushed red, but she sat. Patricia stood, opened her briefcase, pulled out a tablet. "Your Honor, if I may?" What followed was 15 minutes of methodical destruction. Patricia showed the security footage, all 3 men arriving without announcement. Hardhat working the bolt cutters, phone guy admitting Karen sent them. Then she pivoted to my documentation. "Mr. Caldwell's workshop is fully permitted and legally operating. All equipment is commercial grade and properly licensed. The dangerous materials are standard backup batteries, OSHA compliant, and fire marshal inspected in March 2024. She pulled up more files. "We also have evidence that Mrs. Ashford has stalked Mr. Caldwell for 6 months. Click Karen photographing my property at night. Click Karen directing trespassers. Click Karen's car making slow passes at odd hours. This isn't community governance, Your Honor. This is personal vendetta." Judge Warren set down her pen with a decisive click. "Mr. Foster, your lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. Your clients had zero authority, committed criminal trespass, and Mrs. Ashford orchestrated it. I'm referring this to the district attorney for potential criminal charges." She looked directly at Karen. "And Mr. Caldwell, you're free to pursue civil damages." Patricia smiled like a shark. "We'll be filing within the week, Your Honor." As we walked out, Karen grabbed my arm. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." I looked down at her hand, then met her eyes. "Neither do you, Mrs. Ashford." I should have taken that threat more seriously. 3 days later, at 2:43 a.m., my security alert pinged. Usually that meant a deer. This time, it was a dark sedan on the service road behind my property, 2 figures mounting something on a tree. A camera. I watched through thermal imaging as they worked, then pulled on jeans and headed outside. By the time I got close, they were gone, but I had the license plate. More importantly, I had clear footage of one installer, Tyler Ashford, Karen's 22-year-old son. The camera was cheap, a battery-operated trail cam. I left it there but disabled its transmission. Let them think it worked. Meanwhile, I documented everything and sent it to Patricia. Her response at 7 a.m., "File a police report today. This is escalating." She was right. Over the next 2 weeks, the harassment went nuclear. Anonymous emails hit my business clients claiming I was under investigation for hazardous materials, that my security clearances were being reviewed, that I posed a liability risk. 3 clients called concerned. 2 just stopped returning calls. My revenue dropped 30% in 10 days. Then came the Facebook group, Pinewood Heights Community Watch. My property featured prominently photos from that trail camera and others they'd planted, always with vague warnings about unverified activities and unusual energy consumption. The comments were a wildfire. Half the neighborhood suddenly believed I was running anything from a meth lab to an illegal weapons cache. I reported the group. Facebook's response: "Doesn't violate community standards." Of course not. Karen knew exactly how to weaponize social media, stay vague enough to avoid defamation, scary enough to spread fear. 2 weeks later, my old colleague Jamal called from Atlanta. "Marcus, you need to see this." He sent a link to YouTube, Suburban Danger, inside an illegal operation. My stomach dropped. The video was slick, professional editing, ominous music, dramatic narration. Footage of my property at night cut to look suspicious, shots of me carrying equipment framed to look clandestine, thermal imagery with labels like unexplained heat signatures. The narrator claimed to be a concerned community member investigating suspicious activity, never used my name, never showed my face clearly, but anyone from Pinewood Heights would recognize my place instantly. 43,000 views in 3 days. I sat in my workshop watching my reputation shred across the internet by strangers who knew nothing about me except what Karen wanted them to believe. For the first time in decades, I felt genuine uncertainty. This wasn't a fight I could win with evidence. This was information warfare. And Karen had just shown she was willing to burn everything down. I called Patricia. They're destroying my business. I know. Marcus, this is beyond civil court. This is criminal harassment, cyberstalking, defamation. We need to escalate. To who? To someone who specializes in exactly this. She gave me a name. Rebecca Chen, former FBI cybercrimes investigator, now private forensic consultant. Within a day, Rebecca was in my workshop reviewing everything: trail cameras, social media campaigns, the YouTube video, emails to my clients. She worked in silence for 3 hours. When she looked up, her eyes were hard. Mr. Caldwell, you're not dealing with an angry HOA president. You're dealing with coordinated criminal harassment. The video alone is defamation and cyberstalking. The cameras are illegal surveillance. The client emails are tortious interference. Can you prove it's them? She smiled. It wasn't friendly. Give me 72 hours. Rebecca called back exactly 3 days later. I've got them, she said, voice flat with professional satisfaction. Tyler was sloppy. Karen was arrogant. They left digital fingerprints everywhere. How bad? Bad enough that the DA's going to love this. Bad enough that Karen's looking at prison time. She didn't explain the technical details, how she traced the uploads, what metadata she'd found, which laws they'd broken. I didn't need to know the how. I just needed to know we'd won. The evidence packet went to District Attorney Michael Brennan's office on Monday, a 3-inch binder plus 2 USB drives. Brennan called that afternoon. Mr. Caldwell, I've reviewed the preliminary evidence. When your attorney first called about an HOA dispute, I was skeptical. But this, he paused, this is organized, systematic harassment using digital tools. I'm opening a criminal investigation. What's the timeline? Fast. We're assigning this to our cybercrimes unit. They'll seize devices, verify evidence, probably bring charges within 2 weeks. This is going to get loud. Good, I said. I'm done being quiet. The raids happened at 6:15 a.m. on a Wednesday. Sheriff's deputies hit Karen's house with a warrant, computers, phones, tablets, anything with a hard drive. State police simultaneously hit Tyler's apartment in Athens. By 9 a.m., the Pinewood Heights Facebook group was melting down. Someone posted a blurry photo of agents carrying evidence boxes out of Karen's house. Caption, "This is serious." Karen tried posting something frantic about persecution and retaliation. The DA had it removed within an hour as potential witness tampering. By 3 p.m., the HOA board voted unanimously to suspend her. By 5 p.m., Tyler's YouTube video was gone. I sat in my workshop that evening, finally quiet after months of chaos, and took the first full breath I'd had in half a year. Rebecca called around 7. The DA's team found everything. Deleted files, draft emails, planning documents. Marcus Karen kept notes, actual written notes, outlining her strategy to force you out of Pinewood Heights. She wrote it down? She documented every step like she was planning a corporate takeover. The DA called it one of the most self-incriminating cases he's ever seen. 2 weeks after the raids, Tyler's attorney contacted the DA with an offer. Tyler would testify against his mother in exchange for reduced charges. He'd provide everything: conversations, planning documents, files he'd backed up. The DA accepted. When Karen found out her son was cooperating, something broke. She violated bail by posting a long Facebook rant, claiming she was the victim of a conspiracy between me, the DA, and corrupt officials who wanted to silence HOA leaders who stood up to dangerous individuals. The post was unhinged. It stayed up 6 hours before someone reported it to her bail officer. Judge Warren revoked her bail entirely. Karen was remanded to county custody pending trial. As deputies led her out, she twisted around to look at me, rage and disbelief mixing into something almost pitiful. She genuinely couldn't comprehend how this had happened. I met her eyes briefly, then looked away. There was nothing left to say. The trial was anticlimactic. With Tyler's testimony and Rebecca's evidence, the prosecution's case was airtight. The jury deliberated less than 3 hours. Guilty. All counts. Sentencing came a month later. Judge Warren was thorough and unsparing. Mrs. Ashford, you held a position of community trust and weaponized it. You used technology to stalk, harass, and destroy a man's livelihood because he wouldn't submit to your authority. The damage, financial, psychological, social, cannot be overstated. Karen stood motionless. I'm sentencing you to 36 months in state prison, followed by 5 years supervised probation. You're permanently barred from any HOA leadership position in Georgia. You'll pay full restitution to Mr. Caldwell and complete 200 hours of community service after release. 36 months? 3 years? Tyler got 18 months suspended, 5 years probation, community service. He'd avoided prison by cooperating, but his mother would serve every day. As they led Karen away, I didn't smile. Justice shouldn't feel sweet. But accountability? That's different. The civil case settled 6 months later. The HOA, under new leadership, paid $285,000, lost income, legal fees, security upgrades, damages. They also rewrote their entire governance structure with oversight and legal review requirements that should have existed from day one. 1 year after Karen's sentencing, I was replacing a cable in my workshop when my phone rang. Tennessee area code? Mr. Caldwell? My name is Jennifer Torres. I found your website. Our HOA is threatening to fine us $100 a day over a pride flag. They're using the same tactics you described. I don't know what to do. I looked around my workshop, the space Karen tried to destroy, the space that had become the center of everything that came after. Tell me what's happening, I said. Start from the beginning. Outside, the Georgia pines swayed in evening light. Somewhere in a correctional facility, Karen Ashford was learning what real consequences felt like. And here, I was helping someone else survive the nightmare I'd barely escaped. The call lasted 40 minutes. By the end, Jennifer was crying not from fear anymore, but relief that someone believed her, understood, knew how to fight back. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not giving up. I set the phone down and stared at it for a long moment. Karen had tried to bury me because I wouldn't bow. Instead, she'd taught me exactly how much one person with documentation and determination could do against her and for others. I pulled up Jennifer's case file and started taking notes. There was work to do.